Welcome back to the shipyard. Today, we're not looking at this. We're looking at this. That's right. Star Trek Ascendancy. Gale Force 9. Big box game. 4X game. That's expand, exploit, explore, and exterminate. Do you do all four? Why, yes. You definitely expand and explore. Exploit and exterminate, that's up to you. But the options are there. Before I go any further, should note, this is a review copy that was sent to me from Gale Force 9. So, I didn't buy it. I would have bought it. I was planning on buying it. But, completely happy to get it from the company. And just wanted to have that as a disclaimer so that you guys understand where this is coming from. Because I believe in transparency. It's a good thing to have. Alright, let's get into it. Ascendancy comes with a whole mess of stuff. You get cards, you get planets, you get miniatures, you get tokens. It's what you expect for the price point. It's a big box, stores everything, and has room for expansions, though I feel like I'm either storing expansions in their own box or throwing away the insert, which has its pros and cons. You also get a nice 28-page rulebook. It's not that thick, and aside from maybe missing an index, I love that rulebook. Clear to find everything I need, aside from those weird rule interactions. But honestly, how often are those going to come into play? Not very frequently. I was able to learn the game through a read-through of that rulebook and messing around with the bits, like you do with any kind of complicated game. It works. So, kudos on the rulebook. Great language. Simple to understand, but not too simple. Plenty of examples that hit at the right point. You don't want examples for simple things, and you don't want to miss examples for the complicated things. So I think they did a good job balancing what you need and what you don't need. This is more of a first thoughts video. This is all based off of one playthrough, and the reason I wanted to do that is to get my thoughts out here. It's tough to do a full review because I believe that in order to do an actual review, you need to have played a game multiple times, really gotten into the depth of the game, feeling out what it is, understanding some different strategies. And even as I was playing through the first time, I'm going, oh, okay, this is something I can do differently next time. These are some mistakes that were made. You always have those occasional rule errors, and they're not things that drastically impacted the game, but you have to understand where the luck was in the game, what was luck, and you learn a lot the first time you play any game that will influence future games. And so take this as more of a first thoughts rather than a total review. Just another disclaimer. This game has a lot going for it, but there's also a lot in the box. Every faction has a faction board, and that's used to track your weapons and shields for all your ships. But more than that, it gives every faction a perk and a drawback. For instance, the Federation can never invade planets, and they can't colonize pre-warp civilizations. It's the prime directive, the thematic sense. And their perk is whenever they discover a civilization, they get a culture. Culture is needed to do a bunch of things in the game. Take over planets, and ultimately get Ascendancy, which helps you win the game. Speaking of winning the game, there's 2 ways to win the game. One is to get 5 Ascendancy. Each Ascendancy is 5 culture. So that's one way. The other way is to take over 2 other home planets. So there's 2 ways to take over home planets. One is to do it militarily with the invasion, so the feds can't do that. The other is with cultural hegemony. And that's where you want to have your Ascendancy, and there's a whole bunch of rules for that. It's not overly complicated. I just don't want to go into all the specifics in this video. I may end up doing a how to play, because I think those are very useful to have, but that's not the purpose of this video. And if I start going into all the rule explanations, then that's going to be a very long video that nobody really wants to watch at this point. But I think it's important to understand that there are multiple paths to victory. And with that, players need to understand that another player can win in multiple ways. I think that the Federation right now are best suited towards winning with Ascendancy, though they certainly have the tools to win with Hegemony. The Klingons are certainly better suited to winning with Invasion, a complete takeover, because that's Klingons. They go out and they attack everything. And the Romulans are suited to do either. In fact, our first game saw a Romulan Ascendancy victory, though it saw 24/25 of a Federation Ascendancy victory, and I was on the Federation side, so that was very frustrating to me. In fact, I had everything taken over from me, but it's good. Both players recognized where I was, that I was this close to winning, and they stopped me, and there's no hard feelings there. I just wish that I had the tools to rebuff the invasion, but the dice were not on my side. Q was not favorable with my dice. It happens. So, talking about the exploration of the game, that was one of the things I really enjoyed, and the other players seemed to really enjoy. Not so much the Klingon player; they got a ton of bad luck early on with I think the first 5 things they discovered were hazards. And the first 4 things I discovered were not hazards. And they were all planets. And they were all either warp-capable civilizations or virgin worlds. And that gave me a big leg up. One of them was GOM2, and that gave me an extra ship, which was even better. You can't beat luck sometimes. There's luck in the game, for sure. And there's nothing you can do about that. But what good and bad luck does is it puts players in a pecking order. And as the third and the second player, you start going, hey, you know what? We're losing this game. Let's kind of work together to stop him. And when you do that, you get some 3-player dynamics. A attacks B, B attacks A, so C runs off with the game. But that's not what happened to us, because we kept everybody in check, and it was really tooth and nail until the end. And I think as long as everybody recognizes what's going on with that, you're in a much better place. We kept kind of saying, boy, a 4th player would really make the dynamics of this game work. Because a 4th player would make alliances much more interesting with the trade agreements, so you get more resources. But that 4th player would create a lot more ship dynamics, planetary dynamics, and you got one more person you got to watch your back on, in terms of you never know who's coming in to take over your system. It's, boy, there's a lot out there. There's every faction gets their own deck of advancements, which I'm calling technology. It's one of those terms that doesn't jive in my brain, and calling it tech just makes more sense to me. It There are things that tweak the faction. Uh, One of the advancements the Federation can get is transwarp drive, which lets them go further when they perform a warp action. And that was really crucial for me. I could go further than people thought I could go, and they kind of forgot about that. It was a very interesting ability, and I'm not sure it's one I'd always use, but it was nice to have in this first game. And I, everything impacts the game. It's one of the areas I think that my group didn't explore enough. Is we should have done more with the technology, because I think all of those really define the factions. They really start to give a personality to what the factions are. The Romulans get an advanced cloaking device, which makes them insanely powerful. But the Federation have a way to counter it, and the Klingons counter it by just going on the offensive and doing what Klingons do. Just blaze of glory attack. Today is, in fact, a good day to die. It's what you do. Uh, but you put those things together, and there's so much out there. These techs, these faction perks, and the exploration deck when you go to a new planet. This game changes every time you play it. The way space comes into being, it's going to be different. The next time I play this game, it's going to take on a completely different feel than what it was this last time. Um, that being said, this game is gigantic. It needs a big table. I played on a reasonably big table, not the biggest table possible, but a reasonably big one. And we needed every single inch of it. And we were using bench seating for storing faction boards and tech and ships and everything that wasn't essential to have on the playing surface, because we were out of room. And it kind of limited our ability to go in certain ways, because sometimes you want to build in different directions. But that being said, it forced us towards each other, and that was a good thing in and of itself. So you can't have everything. It's We knew what we were getting into with this game, and we did the best we could with it. So I can't wait for the Cardassian expansion. That's really got me excited. I'm excited for Ferengi as well, but of the two, Cardassians are exciting me more, probably because I've seen more of what the Cardassians have in store. But Ferengi make me go, they you never quite know what you're getting. I think they have great potential to shake up the game and do things in a different way, but I've always liked the Cardassians. Dukat, Goldemar, Golovec, all of the big protagonists, and guys going, okay, maybe the antagonists. It's the people that really shake things up. And I know we don't really have the characters in this game, but the game still stands on its own without relying on the people of Star Trek. And that surprises me. I like that aspect, because Attack Wing is so based on the people and the named ships. And Ascendancy is, what is the faction as a whole? What is the core idea of how this faction works. And then the advancements kind of shape some other ideas of it. But they're such different games. And it's really refreshing to have a company in Gale Force 9 that has taken the time to understand what each faction really is at its core. That speaks volumes. That they're not just depending on the flash, the glamour of the people. It's really easy to make a game about Kirk, Spock, McCoy, or Picard and the Enterprise adventures, or even Deep Space Nine. But this is about, okay, what is the Federation and what is the Klingon Empire and what is the Romulan Empire? What is the essence of that faction? That's what I want. That's it's something I didn't quite realize I needed, and they gave it to me. They put it in the box and they said, "Here, play it." And when a game surprises you like that, it's perfect. Now, this is not a perfect game, but it is such a Star Trek experience. It's hard to truly articulate. A couple more things. One, the downtime. Yes, there is some downtime in this game because when it's your turn, you do everything for your turn. You build, and then you take all the actions you can possibly do. At the start of the game, you have 5 actions. As you keep playing, you could have up to 8. If you take over other people's star bases, you get 1 for every one you do of that. And there's a couple of advancement cards that give you more commands. So 8 is realistic, but 9, 10, you're looking at 8 per player on average. That's a lot of actions. Some actions are very simple, right? We're moving to spaces, or we're going into warp, or we're coming out of warp. Some actions are very complicated. Hey, we're starting a fight. Fights can take a while. But the game still has a flow. If players are planning their moves while it's not their turn, to at least some degree, because sometimes you don't fully know how everything's going to turn out. But if you have some idea about what you're going to do, it's going to speed the game up. And I've seen some people on the forums talking about timers, and yes, you could do a timer system, but really, I don't think it's necessary unless your group's super slow about it. We got through our first game in 3.5 hours, which, when the rulebook says an hour per player once everybody knows what they're doing, I'm really happy with 3.5 hours. Now, I almost won in about 2.5 hours, but that was because of the insane luck, and I don't expect that to ever happen again. So we're going to kind of back away from that one. It's 3 hours for a 3-player game, and that feels right. Because here's the thing, this is a game you can play in an evening or an afternoon. It's not an all-day game. And that's what I really enjoy here. I'm getting exploration. I'm getting a huge game experience. I'm getting to manage fleets. I'm getting to make my own space empire. And it feels right. You don't have a ton of ships on the board at any given time. You can, but more than likely, you're not going to. It doesn't feel overwhelming. The game has a nice learning curve. You start very far away from each other. You could rush and meet somebody on like turn 2. But for the most part, you're not going to. You're going to meet somebody on turn 3, turn 4, and that feels right. It's there's forgiveness in the game. but not much. You need to make best use of every single action you do. And you need to really have a good handle on what you're doing and just have a plan. Um, it's tough sometimes, but if you come in with a plan and you execute your plan, and of course make adaptations when everything goes crazy, because well, there's two other people also with a plan, and you're drawing random planets and random events, and that's going to change everything, then you're going to be okay. The best part of this is one guy came over near the end and he watched us play probably the last hour, and he said, "Hey, I want to play that sometime." That's super encouraging to me because the game looks really daunting from the outside, and to have somebody sit there and watch and go, "Hey, I won't play that," that's a win. And I don't know if he's a glutton for punishment, but that's that was so encouraging to me to have somebody say that. It's okay. Now I'm not dependent on the same three people, or once the Cardassians come out, now I've got my fourth. That's a great thing. Some people have asked me to talk about how this game might work as a Star Trek Attack Wing campaign feeler. I'm going to do that in a separate video sometime. So know that I've heard you, and I will talk about it, but I want to play this another time or two before I truly get into that, but I will do that at some point. So it's coming. There are thoughts to it. I've already been thinking about it. Just give me some time on it. Star Trek Ascendancy. This is uh, this is already in my top 30. And if you've watched my top 100, and believe me, I forgive you if you haven't, but it's on the channel. If you've watched my top 100, you will understand the caliber of games that I mean when I say top 30. The only reason it's not higher is because I typically don't like to rank games after one play. And I could see this game climbing a lot higher. This gives me a great feeling, a great experience. I woke up today thinking about Ascendancy, and I am recording this 24 hours or so after playing it, and I want to play it again. But I understand that it's a huge time investment, and not everybody can devote 4 or 5 hours to playing one solid game uh, multiple times during a week. It's a lot to ask, but there's a lot here, and there's a ton of variety, and I want to keep playing this. I want to know more. I want to get in there. I want to try all the factions. I want to keep exploring and expanding and exploiting the other planets and exterminating the other players, because that just is so much fun. So that's it for my first thoughts. If you have questions, if you have comments, please leave them. I will talk about it. I'll answer them either here or in the full review. I promise I'll get back to you. And thank you guys for watching. Until next time, we'll see you around the shipyard. Take care, guys.